Hello, I'm Dave Rowland, Communications Director for the San Diego City Council. I'd like to welcome you to the first in a series of conversations with members of your City Council. For those of you who might not be completely up to speed on what the City Council is and does, well, the City Council is the legislative body of the City of San Diego. It's made up of 9 members who represent geographic districts with equal numbers of residents. Collectively, the council makes laws which the mayor, as the city's chief executive, implements. Simple. Now, a rare thing is happening at the end of this year. 5 members of the City Council will be leaving office, either because they have served the maximum allowable number of terms, which is 2, or because they're running for a different office. And just FYI, you may not run for 2 offices on the same ballot. So this December, 5 new members will be sworn in, and the council will sport a very different overall makeup. My plan here is to talk to the departing members and those who will return, as well as the new members once they're sworn in. Today, I'm joined by City Council President Georgette Gómez, who, in addition to leading the council, represents District 9, which includes the communities of City Heights, the College area, College View Estates, Alvarado Estates, Kensington, Talmadge, Rolando, El Cerrito, Mountain View, Mount Hope, and Southcrest. Elected to the council in 2016, she is among those members who will be departing in December. Council President Gómez, thank you so much for taking the time to chat today.
Of course, thank you. I'm excited.
Me too.
Well, we'll see what comes from this.
So the way I'd love to start this conversation is by asking you to look back on your 4 years on the City Council. And I hate that we can't do that without talking about COVID-19. So on a personal level, how have you and those close to you have been coping with all this?
It's been challenging, to say the least. There's a lot of work that we have to do in this city to really be a city that represents all of our community members, and that really has weighed quite a bit on me. Just seeing the inequalities that we have, and but just trying to keep moving forward and really be responsive to those needs. And my family, I don't get to see them that often, so I try to connect with them as much as possible. But I was busy before. Ultra busy more, just because there's a lot that is right now that we're tackling with. So, well, the way that I've been kind of coping with it is our family keeps on growing. We added 2 chickens to our home. We added 2 additional puppies now. I had Totoro before, Canela, and we just added another one last night. Maybe they'll come, but yeah, so it's just our family just keeps on growing. So it's an interesting way to be coping with this major challenge.
Yeah, I imagine that helps. It just adds to the support that you have at home, right?
Yes, most definitely, which is good. I mean, it gives me a different focus outside of the work that we have to do. So it's good. It's good. So.
Well, so you talked a little bit about your job during this crisis, and the council has been able to move forward some pretty important business. The pandemic has set the city back in terms of budget resources that will be available going forward, and in terms of the devastating impact on the lives and livelihoods of residents across the city. Talk to me about your focus during the past 7-8 months, whatever this has been. I think a big part of that has been protecting residents from eviction. Yes.
Yes. So, I mean, when I got the beginning call from the mayor saying, hey, the governor's going to issue a healthcare emergency because of COVID. That means we're still trying to figure it out for our city. What does it mean, and what do we need to do, right? So everything just went from the governor making that announcement to the next day I was standing with the mayor saying, okay, this is what it's going to be for San Diego. We're asking people to not large get-togethers were no longer acceptable. We were still trying to figure things out. So it was early on. So I believe we were allowing, I don't remember exactly the number, but I think 15 or 10 people at the most. We were asking people businesses to possibly cooperate with us and limit the how many people can come in, and then literally, so we were just, it was very early on. So soon after, I mean, there was governor made the announcement. I stood with the mayor making the announcement that what it meant for the city of San Diego. And then within that same week, we were making an announcement that businesses needed to shut down. That meant, in my head, that meant folks that were working in certain industries that we were asking to be shut down weren't going to be working anymore. So that meant them not getting a paycheck at the end of the month. These are folks that are living paycheck by paycheck. So right away, I went into, okay, they're going to get impacted financially. These are the same folks that don't have a savings account, and they're not going to be able to pay their bills, their rent or their water utilities or their internet, whatever it might be, right? So I right away crafted a memo that lined up a lot of different points. One of them was putting an eviction moratorium, stopping evictions, basically, trying to protect renters. In the meanwhile, thinking that we were going to be getting some resources from either the state or the federal government, and we can figure out how to utilize those resources, but at least minimize the impact to residents in the period that was it's been very challenging, as you know, economically, health-wise, and it didn't make any sense for us not to do much to protect folks that are in the blink of losing everything. So we move forward with the eviction moratorium, protecting renters, protecting our small businesses as well, because they too weren't, we were asking them, please shut your doors. You're not getting any more consumers. Basically, your business has come to a halt. They have the same pressures as a renter. Their bills were going to come. They needed to pay payroll if need be. Some continued to do that. Some didn't. So we also protected them as well. And it's just been it's been a lot of work since then, just making sure the eviction stood in place. We continue to extend it. We continue to figure out, okay, what is the payback mechanism? We ended up adopting a business relief fund. And then as well, from there, we adopted a rental relief fund as well, making sure that we were helping renters because the landlords weren't getting paid. And we wanted to make sure that nobody was losing either the properties that are essential for people to live in. So everything's connected. We're seeing kind of like the connectivity, right? So yeah, so we've been working a lot and trying to make sure that we're protecting folks.
Yeah, it's really a domino effect. Everything you try to address in this crisis leads to another dilemma for another group of people. And I think the rental assistance, I think that's up to about $20 million now with a recent addition of another $5 million from.
That is correct. Yeah.
So I've heard you talk about this year. I've heard you talk about some of the issues and the inequities that have been priorities for you going back many years and how they've been further exposed during the pandemic. And I'd love for you to speak to that. And I think you actually just touched on the digital divide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. We've known, right, that technology hasn't been relatively available for all community members. And I think because the pandemic has forced us to basically live through this, through technology right now, it's a form of communicating, it's a form of carrying your work. Now it's become a form of doing your learning. And so there's so much demand in technology right now as we speak, but it also really has some veil that we still have a lot of community members that are not connected. And yet again, these are the same people that were losing their jobs. So they were already struggling. We're asking them pivot to this technology that you have no access to, but the world is going to revolve around. So as soon as all of that was just being, everything just collide in my world of, oh my God, we really need to push some sort of real answer to really address this digital divide. So during the budget, we push for allocating some resources. I think I allocated about $500,000. We have already rolled phase one of what the digital divide program is going to look like. We have partnered with the school district as well, the San Diego School District, because they too were challenged as well. And it's been, something that I'm proud of, and I'm hoping that we continue really pushing forward and really addressing this issue of technology, just because, like I said, the world has shifted, and I think it's going to continue in that lens. So we really need to make sure that technology is available for all community members. And right now, the way that it's being done, I mean, it's a Band-Aid to really have the response and make it relatively available. But we have much more work to do on this issue.
Yeah, I think at first we're starting out with parks and rec facilities and
Right.
libraries in the school district, as you say. And so we're looking forward to seeing where that project goes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that as you say, you got some money in this year's budget for that. And so speaking of the budget, in the middle of this pandemic, we also saw the killings of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and other Black Americans, leading to protests across the country that persist to this day. Now, this all ignited just as the council was set to pass a budget, and you and your colleagues listened to many hours worth of residents insisting that you reduce the police budget. And there was a lot of anger directed at you when that didn't happen. I know you as somebody who has a long record of advocating for social, economic, and environmental justice. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the folks who were letting you have it didn't really know that history. How difficult was that for you to have to go through?
Yeah, I think in introspect, I mean, it was. I think that particular moment was, really reflecting. Was one of the most difficult ones for me because it was very challenging. I mean, if those that know me know that my values are about addressing these injustices, right? And some of these injustices have been developed by centering public safety in a negative way in low-income communities. Those are the communities that I carry in my heart and I think about constantly. So when this whole call of defunding the police, it was something that, I mean, I thought about very, very seriously, just because I wanted to respond in a proper way, in a responsible way. And to me, a responsible way wasn't just vote no, because I want to push this true systemic changes that are really getting to the core of these injustices, these reforms that need to occur that have been racially and equitable in our society. So I knew that by me, like I mean, I was working the entire weekend leading to that Monday meeting, working very closely with Council Member Montgomery staff and my staff, just trying to figure out how can we do this? Is this a possibility? And we turned every single stone that it wasn't possible, unfortunately. So that also led me to, okay, if we can't do that, then what can we do to advance this call of addressing the racial inequities? So we push forward several asks that I think are transformative. Not People might not see it transformative at the immediately, but as a brown queer woman, someone that grew up in El Barrio, nobody has to tell me about the fact that PD has profiled brown and black communities. I mean, I lived it. I continue to live it even to this point, just in terms of I have nieces and nephews, and I get texts from my brother saying, hey, your nephew got pulled over just for crossing the sidewalk, perhaps not the sidewalk, the crosswalk, middle of the street, right? And you know, I get messages, I'm afraid if he's not coming back tonight because something's going to happen. So this is real for me. This is personal for me. So it was, it would have been irresponsible for me to just say, I'm voting no, but I'm not going to move anything. And my job as a policy maker is changing those policies that have created this structure. So, I mean, we're in the process of creating the Race and Equity Department, which I think that's going to transform the whole conversation of equity in this city. And it's in its beginning phases, but I'm excited of what's to come. We are about to contract $1.5 million to hire social workers to do outreach to our unsheltered residents that is not led by PD. That's pretty significant. We talked about the digital divide. We allocated $500,000, and we are in the process of rolling out that program. It's not enough money. I know of that, but it's the beginning. We have planted seeds that are gonna lead to real change in the long run. And for me, that was more important because if I'm committed in addressing these racial disparities, that is the work that we were sent to do. And I took that path. Now, also in you know, thinking back, I think one of the mistakes that I did as an elected is I didn't have that, because I was struggling with this whole thing. And Monday came, and literally a few hours before the meeting, okay, I knew how things were going to play out, but I struggled with my team. I struggled with Councilmember Montgomery. We didn't struggle. Struggled in a transparent way, which I think if we would have had a town hall conversation, just everything went so quickly.
Yeah.
Right. But really looking back, maybe that was the piece that I should have pulled together a meeting with stakeholders that have been doing this, that are doing the work, that have been doing the work in transforming our city and a more inclusive, to have it be more inclusive and address these racial disparities that we see constantly in South of the 8 communities. I think that would have gone a long way. And that, now thinking about it, that's one of the pieces that I regret not doing. And I didn't do it because I was trying to hide. It was just, everything just went so quickly, and it just happened so fast. And
yeah, I mean, to your defense, I mean, I remember that time. It was, I mean, we were in the 11th hour in the budget process. We were at the very end.
Yeah.
All this happened and the folks started coming forward. I mean, certainly there had been calls, you know, for accountability in terms of the police departments all over this country before that. But
right.
You know, it really reached a head right as you were finishing up the budget process. So I don't know, I wouldn't beat yourself up too much about it.
No, but I definitely take it too hard. I mean, like I said, it was one of the toughest moments of the whole time that I've been at City Hall. I think that's a moment where it will be remembered. Yeah.
Well, let's back up a little bit. So we've touched on your priorities, and you know, when we talk about priorities, we're really talking about values, and we've talked about that a little bit too. And they often come from family or childhood circumstances, but not always. So just briefly, what shaped you and ultimately made you want to run for office in the first place?
Well, I first, we'll get to the running for office, but I really honestly, and the truth, I never thought that I would be running for office. You know, it really came from the work that I was doing beforehand. And what really shaped me is my upbringing. Growing up in Barrio Logan, haven't been bussed out of my community to get my education, because I grew up in a low-income community, a community that is considered an environmental injustice community, meaning that there's high pollution there. My playground surrounded by freeways, my grocery store having it be a liquor store. So the conditions weren't the best. It was a beautiful, I mean, in my head, I lived in the best community ever, because one of the things that this community had was there's a lot of, a lot of people, right? You get to be, it's like a family. And that's something that I don't see in a lot of other communities that are a little bit more affluent. There's a lot of separation. And, but my mother thought, and because my mom really wanted me and my brother and my sister to make sure that we went to college. So education was very critical for her. So she sent all of us out of our community to get that education. And that trajectory really taught me because I took the bus every single day. And as painful as it was also a moment of, oh, there are other communities that are completely different. I mean, I was being bused out to San Carlos. I was bused out to Tierra Santa for high school. And that really started making me think, why is it? Why is that those communities different than my community? Why is it that they have grocery stores? Why is it that they actually have proper parks? The housing looks different. Even the sidewalks, even the smell of the air is different. So I just started asking all these questions. And then obviously, I mean, education, um, opens your eyes. So high school really was the moment of, aha, there is racism in this country. Brown and Black communities get treated differently than wealthier, more affluent communities. And my senior in high school happens to be the year that Pete Wilson was governor, that he was targeting immigrant communities left and right. He introduced Proposition 187 that minimized the resources to undocumented families. And that really was the setting point of, oh my God, I got to do something about this. And I'm the youngest of three. My brother, when I was in high school, I was a senior in high school, he was already in college, in community college, and he was very active in his college, and I would follow him. So I got involved in trying to defeat 187. It was kind of like a moment of, wow, this country's really racist, and is being driven by the governor, by an elected. So from there on, my commitment in trying to address this very thing called racism, that was cemented. And I went to San Diego State, got very involved there. Once I graduated from there, I became a counselor for domestic and sexual assault survivors. That was very heavy work. But it was, work that I was called to do. And then I became an organizer fighting environmental justice. And literally that's what I wanted ultimately to do, and do the work in the Logan Heights, Barrio Logan Heights area, because that's the community that I was from. And I always promised myself, I want to go and make a difference there. I want to be able to provide and shape a healthier, more vibrant neighborhood for the future youth, so they can have a better access and they don't have to be bussed out of their community, to have good education, to have healthy food, for all of that. And I became a community organizer, and from there I started doing work with other nonprofits, and then started getting involved in electing other people. And then one thing just led to another, and I did that for more than a decade. So it was a long time that I did it. I built a lot of relationships, a lot of people that trusted me, that saw where my work was coming from and where my commitment was coming from. And I always thought that's what I was going to do. Literally, I was going to work with community members. We were going to, organize and continue organizing until we start pushing for a more just government that actually pays attention to low-income communities in a real way. And then 2015 came. Former council member Marty Emerald announced that she wasn't going to run, and people started asking me. And at first, when I heard it, I rejected the idea because I always thought, no, I want to change government. I don't want to be part of government. But then I started thinking, why not? Why not have this voice in government? So I committed in running, and we ran a strong grassroots campaign that it was infused by community members, and we ended up winning against all odds. And then as soon as I got there, I just got to work, and I haven't stopped since. As you know, we work really hard. We have a big agenda, and we just continue to push until the very end. And I'm really proud of the work that we've established, the conversation that we have established in the city of San Diego.
So after you had been on council for a while, did you feel like you had already had the skills necessary to be successful, or did those necessary skills kind of need to be developed as you went?
Wow. I thought I had them. I thought I had them because the work that I was doing before really gave me the opportunity to develop the skills of negotiating, of being creative to resolve issues. I mean, I was working on addressing some of the major issues that aren't a priority for everybody, right? To give value to low-income community is it's not something that is easily done. There are issues that have been ignored historically, and so that really challenged my creativity. And okay, how do you bring attention to the fact that these communities have been unseen in this city, and how do you create attention, but also what are the solutions that need to occur? So that really gave me the skills to be a little bit more creative, but also work with people that I didn't normally would work with.
Right.
So that's been something that I'm very proud that I had that experience, because it really has allowed me to do the work that I do as a council member, as a council president. So I would say the training that I received at Environmental Health Coalition truly did give me the skills to be able to do the work that I'm doing now.
So you just mentioned being council president, that you were elected by your colleagues midway through your first, and it turns out your only term. And so you have been an advocate, I know, for a stronger council that pushes more policy ideas forward. Isn't that right?
That is correct. As you know, we have a strong mayor, strong council form of government. And I always, every time, before coming in, my question was, what is this strong council, strong mayor form of government? Because I don't see that. A lot of the policy that is being presented is being guided by the mayor. So what exactly are the council members doing just in terms of introducing policies? And then my first couple of years, I just, I was pushing policy. I was being very proactive from that lens, but I wasn't seeing a lot. And then I saw my council president, which was Murder Cole, how there wasn't the strong council. And I just felt that we were doing the business of the mayor. We either were supporting it or rejecting it, right? Or changing it a little bit. But I just thought,
you were reacting to it.
we were reacting to it, right? So I just felt, when I became the council president, when I was voted, I just really wanted to push that. We created a work plan that was reflective of what my council members were going to do in their committees. And I wanted to highlight and signal, okay, these are priorities, so let's get to work on them so we can bring them forward and make them, a landmark for the city. And and then I've been growing the team in terms of what the council president has. When I was first my first year as a council president, it came with two staffers, right? The person that is managing the docketing, and he had an assistant. That was to the extent. And now we added the communications role, as well as a government affair. And I just think there could be room for more support, but it's just continuing to add the support to truly cement the strong council form of government. And I believe that we've been bringing forward some stronger policies. Would love to see more of it, but my colleagues have been supported, and I continue to try to bring what they're wanting to do that are aligned with my values and what I believe. We try to bring them forward.
Yeah, so in 2017, you released a housing action plan, and you and your colleagues have successfully checked off a number of the elements that were in that. On your list of accomplishments, where does that issue rank? Is that up near the top?
Oh, most definitely. I think housing was one of the big things that I really wanted to bring in. I mean, we have a housing crisis, but it's always been framed from medium income to higher income. We need to do more of that. And someone that represents a low-income community, a community that an average of a family of four makes about $39,000 in San Diego. If you really think about it, that's nothing, right? How do they survive? So always, for me, the whole focus of how addressing the housing crisis was really from a true affordable housing lens. So that's why I created this housing plan that we released in 2017 that really lay out what I was going to be focused, which was, updating the inclusionary ordinance that basically what that is requiring market rate developers to do more on affordable housing, either pay a fair share of what it costs to actually build an affordable housing unit, or build more units at a faster rate, right? We were able to get that done. It took me some time to get it done, but we were able to do it. We brought forward the preservation work to try to prevent of us losing housing, because that's kind of like what I was seeing, that this is kind of like a circular thing that we're doing. We're building, but while we're building, we're losing a housing. So let's have a plan in how we can preserve the current housing that we have to keep it affordable. And that actually is a model that is not seen anywhere in the country. And I'm very proud that we were able to get that done, that we were able to get the study, but also allocate over $20 million that will be injected in preservation, and we're going to do much more. We move forward with allowing tiny homes to be legal in the city. It was illegal before. We were looking at different ways in which we can encourage faster development of units in tiny homes, granny flats as well. And now we've been pushing a strong plan in how to really have a true housing first response to our residents that are living in the streets. And that's something that actually has wheels. It's got, there's a plan. We've been implementing it, and I think it's moving forward in a positive way.
Yeah, so now I want you to sort of take us behind the scenes, if you can, and tell us something that you find really interesting about being a member of the council that only somebody in your position would know, or just something that you didn't know until you got there and saw it for yourself.
I mean, the city moves really slow, but at the same time, it moves really fast. Just in terms of, it just seems, and this is, I find this very intriguing at times, where there's like this new shiny thing that happens in the city. Like today is this, and then tomorrow is this other new thing, right? There's not like this real focus on, okay, we have these commitments, what are we doing? In my mind, and this is kind of like how I operate, right? You have a vision and you have check marks on each thing that you want to do, and everything that you do should be tied to that. I just don't see that at all. It just feels like we're just everywhere responding to the moment, responding to the new idea that a staffer came up with, and that becomes a thing of today. And it's just, and I see that every single time. And then the big things that are very critical, we just jam them through. And really don't manage them in a way that we should. We don't give enough proper process and enough proper management of including the community. It just gets ran by, and then it is what it is. So it's an interesting dynamic.
I think you're helping me reframe that question in the future for other council members, and maybe I'll ask, what is it that needs to change? What's not quite right that if you could just wave a wand and change it, you could overnight, and maybe that's how I'll ask that question going forward. So so turning more positive now, tell us who is an unsung hero at City Hall that people might not know about, or maybe even just somebody out in one of your communities. Who's a hero out there that needs more attention than they get?
Well, I would say the folks that are in the front lines of keeping the city be what it is. And I know we have much work to do, so I won't name names, but I'll name buckets of categories, like the folks that are keeping our parks active and clean, are the folks that are coming every week to pick up our recycling and trash, the folks that are managing our sewage system that at times don't get mentioned, right? That is, I had an opportunity to visit our Point Loma sewage treatment, and it's massive, but it's hidden, but they do a lot of work every single day. If you imagine, there's over 1.5 million people, if not more, in the city of San Diego. It's like that's a lot of work every single day, right? And and imagine, like, if that were to break, the massive problems that we would have in our city. But we don't see that, and we don't see the work that they do. We don't see the folks that are picking up our trash, what they have to go through, right? So I just feel like they need a little bit more recognition and a little bit of more patience, because I also have to say that they're doing incredible work with very little support. I mean, there's been this narrative that our city employees are like, they're like the problem as to why we have a budget deficit every single year. That narrative has changed. But I mean, some of them they're not going to have a retirement plan because it's been taken away from them. They don't have security. They don't have like a safety net when they retire. And they're still doing the work every single day. So I give them mad props because they do the dirty work that is needed to be done to keep our city moving forward.
All right, last question for you.
Yes.
Thanks so much for spending all this time. So there are 5 new members coming in and taking office for the first time in December. Do you have advice for them? What's the best advice you can give them as they come in?
The best advice is, We have an independent budget analyst department, and they're amazing. They do amazing work.
You sure do.
I would say use them as a resource. Don't hesitate to reach out to them. They're very much honor what they do. They're very independent. They try to be apolitical, and I trust their work 100%. They do a lot of work for us. Use them as a resource. It's you'll be a much better council member.
And just really briefly, advice for the next council president? What's the one
I would say, yes, continue pushing and creating a strong council.
There you go. Perfect. All right. I have been speaking with Georgette Gómez, President of the San Diego City Council. Council President Gómez, thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy day to chat with me.
Yes.
And I will be back soon with the next segment of this conversation series. Until then, please stay safe, stay sane, and goodbye for now.
Peace. Bye, everyone.